Welcome to Attican Plays Railway Empire. All right, hi, this is Attican, and welcome to part 6 of our playthrough of the Dominion Day scenario that came to us with this new Great Lakes DLC. And we've made great progress. In the last episode, we built up Thunder Bay, which is up there in a very snowy region. We built it up quickly to a population of 36,000. We set up a a beer meat line between Thunder Bay and Moose Factory, which is even further north, and successfully grew both of those cities. And now we're at the stage where we need to have 5 cities, or excuse me, we need a total of 8 cities with a population of 55,000 or more connected to our network. And right now we have 5, and we also need to get the fur shipped into Sault Ste. Marie. Now, Sault Ste. Marie has a trading center which takes fur and trades that for alcohol. And one of our tasks is to supply them with some fur. Now, the good news is we've got fur on the way. It's coming in from the snowy north and takes a while to get there. But we have delivered some, and we've got the fur coming into Sault Ste. Marie. And a lot of this episode, you'll see me kind of worrying about how am I going to get more fur down there. And it turns out I was kind of addressing the wrong problem for a long time. What I really needed to do was create some demand for that alcohol so that Sault Ste. Marie would speed up its production. But we'll get to that in a little bit. So you can see here's that line I was talking about, meat up in Moose Factory going down to beer in Thunder Bay. And at this point, again, I'm thinking I need more fur, and I'm trying to get this fur. This is the one, if you'll remember back prior episodes, I'd scouted this one out, this fur place, this fur resource, and this is the one I'd actually intended to buy, and I goofed up and bought one further, as we're looking at it, to the left and up. So it's actually farther up and even more impacted by the snow because it's even further north. So I'm thinking, well, it's too slow. It's coming from too far away. That really, again, that wasn't my problem, but no matter. I set up another line here to this fur source so I could get some more fur coming from a little further down. It's still going to get hit by the snow, but it gets hits later and less often, so that's a good thing. But anyway, we're setting that up, and we're going to run that down to the warehouse. We have a warehouse outside Sault Ste. Marie that accepts 2 items, furs, which then Sault Ste. Marie takes in and uses, and it accepts the product, the alcohol, from Sault Ste. Marie so the production can keep going. Now, if you notice in that warehouse, we already have 27 fur stored in that warehouse. So we've actually already done our job. The problem was I didn't realize that. I didn't even notice it. And, their Sault Ste. Marie has 15 in its internal storage in the city. There's more in the warehouse, so there's plenty of fur in Sault Ste. Marie. So I'm thinking, well, maybe we need to speed up this process. So I'm looking for a buyer for the alcohol and checking down here and noticing that, sure enough, Toronto is a large enough city that it will consume some alcohol. So we're going to set up a line here between our warehouse and Toronto. So there's already a line going down from Sudbury, just over here to the east, down to Toronto. So we're going to hook into that line and run some alcohol down to Toronto, and that way we'll start creating more demand, if you will, for the alcohol, and hopefully speed up this process. I mean, this is something that would have completed naturally on its own eventually, but I'm just trying to get the task done as quickly as possible. For one thing, I want to move on to see if there are any more tasks in this scenario. And if there are, I'm looking forward to taking them on. But this process is a little slow and tedious because, again, you're running that fur down from the north, and the snow really impacts you. So now we can run a line into Toronto. It's a pretty full track, but it's okay. We're not worried about efficiency in Toronto right now. We're more worried about getting some of that alcohol moving, and again creating that demand for it. And I'm going to have to do some experimenting to see if that even mattered. But at any rate, we are going to ship some alcohol out along this line. And if we were worried more about long term, you saw how busy that track was, that single track that's being used down there in Toronto. Would have cleaned that up and set up the ability to run into multiple platforms and spread that load a little bit. But this is a short-term fix, and I'm not seeing the need to worry about it right now. A better player than me would fix that and make it all work beautifully. You can see, even though we've got all that fur stored, we've just moved from like 21 to 24 here, and it seems like it should be going much faster than that. But nevertheless, it's moving along. And again, what's happening is that the fur is loaded in the warehouse, and then it's up to 26. So we're starting to see the activity now, and as the alcohol got shipped out, now it's starting to be replaced from that trading center. And I'm even looking to see if I could buy the trading center and just speed it up myself. In fact, here we go. I'm going to start bidding on it. But if Beatrice is going to overbid me at the $3 million mark, we'll just let her own it. And as a snarky comment I made last time, it'll be ours soon enough anyway. We know what's coming with Beatrix. So she just bought that trading center, so she'll make some profit off of it for a while. Now we're up to 29, so we are definitely making progress. So that task looks like it's under control. And we've grown more cities, so we're up to 7. And just checking to see which ones they were. And look at that. Thunder Bay is up over 60,000. It's so big we can even put a museum in Thunder Bay. Have to put a snow museum in there, I guess. And then we go look at Moose Factory. It's at 48. It's still growing. It's got an excellent demand satisfaction, over 70%. And excellent. Well,
I shall soon bring the negotiations to an end.
Okay, there we go. There we hit our 32 fur to Sault Ste. Marie. So we're good on that front. We're good. We're getting better. All we need is one more city to hit that 55,000 mark. And I'm kind of stubbornly thinking I'd like it to be Moose Factory at this point. I mean, we've invested all this effort into growing these cities, and I would love for it to grow. Now, what we're seeing here, though, is that one problem we have, and this is what I discussed in the prior video. I said we will come back to this. One of the poor things I did here was use my old standard of ship your cattle directly into the city with the meat factory. Don't go through a warehouse because it's not necessary. But with the new design of the warehouses, where it's easy to move the goods in and out, And more importantly, in this case, with that snow and Moose Factory being way up to the north where it gets a lot of snow and the trains get shut down for a long time, what's happening is that when you ship into the city, it only supplies at the rate the city consumes. If you ship into a warehouse and bump up the amount of cattle that the warehouse can hold, it will ship at the rate the warehouse will hold. That way you can store up cattle in that warehouse for the winter. So Moose Factory can just keep on pumping out meat and keep on getting its demand satisfaction met for the cattle. That's the most important thing, so that it can keep growing. So that being said, it is really a great idea on these snow maps particularly to go ahead and move your cattle into the nearby warehouse so that it's stored up for the winter. I mean, that's the whole point. That's really the theme of this whole DLC, the whole snow and the new warehouses and everything is you've got to kind of prepare for those down cycles when you're not really getting things into your city. So here we're going to attempt to buy that tailor, and here you see I'm curious about this. I want that tailor shop. So I'm just going to keep overbidding Beatrix. I got plenty of money to do it. That is not a problem. And see, she's here, there. That's her third overbid, so she's really serious about it. I don't think there'll be another one. There we go. Cost us almost $1 million. No, yeah, almost $1 million. And there's our interest on our bonds, $100,000, and yet look at our cash because we haven't really done a lot of building. We're up to $17 million in cash. Should be spending it, should be investing it, but I'm more interested in making these cities grow. So what we've got here, now we've got a cloth down in Thunder Bay, but if you look, and that could actually help us out because that cloth could be, well, let me go back. The cloth, what we're seeing here is that there is no cotton. We're looking for cotton, and naturally there's no cotton up north. There shouldn't be. I mean, a realistic map, all the cotton would be way down south, even in the U.S. That cotton up there, that far north in the U.S. is really unrealistic. The cotton should be down in the south where it's hot. And there's no cotton up here to the north that we can get. So that cloth is kind of worthless. Now remember back in the prior episode, we are importing cloth from Europe, probably from London, and into Halifax, and we're shipping that over to our working clothes factory over, our tailor over in Saguenay. But here we're seeing there's no way for us to get cloth. We can get the fur okay for this tailor shop, but we can't get the cloth. So what I'm trying to do here is come up with an industry that Moose Factory can actually get goods for, and that way we'll improve our demand satisfaction. So what we're going to do is put a furniture industry in here because the furniture industry needs wood, and that's going to bump up the need for wood in Moose Factory, and it's going to take away that demand for the cloth that we can't get into their handling. Now we could ship it way over in Halifax, but that would be almost ridiculous. So what we want to do to help Moose Factory grow is basically knock down that industry and replace it with an industry again that where it can get what it needs. So we're going to bump up our beer to make sure we're getting enough beer coming across because we got plenty of wheat. So we'll bump up the brewery in Thunder Bay. And a lot of times, by the way, just as a side comment, a lot of times when I'm buying an industry in these scenarios, I'm not worried about the profit from the industry. I mean, look at our money. We're not worried about money at this point. We're worried about hitting our objectives. And since it's a city growth objective, the real reason to own those industries for this particular scenario is so that we can manipulate how big they are and how much demand they have and what the demand is so that we can help our cities to grow. So what we're going to do here now is set up another warehouse and see how you can just connect one just inside the last one. It's beautiful. Look at this. Now we've just doubled our warehouse capacity in Moose Factory once we plop that down. And all we have to do is connect it off to anything, to our existing lines or whatever. And we're going to set it up on this end as well. And what we'll do is set up a connection between this warehouse and this new warehouse in Thunder Bay and the one up in Moose Factory. And now we can move furniture. We can start making furniture in Moose Factory. We can sell it. We can move it down here, ship it down to Thunder Bay so it can be sold. That way the demand will stay and we can make money on our furniture. But again, the main reason is so that Moose Factory will be able to satisfy its demand, because its demand went from cloth to logs. Okay, I said a lot there. I think I kept saying the same thing. So I think you got the idea. You buy these industries to help city growth. That's the big reason we're buying. And here I'm using the same deal I've kind of settled on for my opening up all 4 platforms, run out of the middle 2, put the diamond in, hook the outside lanes just past the diamond, build another diamond just past that, and then set your signals, and that way all 4 lanes can be used. And I did the invitation in an earlier video, and I want to repeat it here. If you guys have a favorite way that you like to open up these 4 lanes, I'd love for you to share that with us so that we can, if it's a good one, I can use it in a video and illustrate it for people. And I'd like to learn better ways to hook these things up, because as you know, I typically do point-to-point connections rather than these kind of more traditional ones that maybe more like what you're used to seeing. But I have to say that with some of the new functionality, these connections are so much easier to do now. And with some of the things we're seeing with the warehouse functionality, that some of the the more conventional double track into 2 platforms kind of connections like this make more sense. And that being said, we might as well figure out what's the absolute best way to do that. So as you can see here, because we've got the double warehouses now, it's easy for us to connect them up, because all we have to do, they're situated near each other on both ends. All we have to do is make a short connection over to our main freight line, and now we can have that freight line serve all 4 warehouses, not just the first 2. So it's a nice, easy way to make our connection. We won't have to worry about the traffic so much, because again, they're just freight moving back and forth between the 2. There's not a tremendous amount of traffic. We don't have 30 trains running on here. It just takes a few trains between each warehouse to move these goods efficiently. And you notice there I had a line and I deleted it. Now why is that? Because I had originally started off that very top, really track number 1 out of that warehouse. And what I really wanted to do was start out of track number 2, because remember, in this configuration we're using right here, the main trunk line connects straight through to platforms 2 and 3, and then you have these little side tracks, if you will, to access platforms 1 and 4. So you want to run your connection off of 2, and you want to have that straight line coming out so you can build this little configuration to open up all the lanes. So now we're just picking some products that furniture is the main one. We definitely want furniture, but we're picking other things that possibly could go, and we will need to match on the other end so that they can share. So we're kind of thinking these are the things that might come up. Of course, we'll never get to that part before we finish the whole thing, but just for the future. But the main thing is the furniture. So we want to be able to create the furniture in Moose Factory, and we want that furniture to go into that warehouse in Moose Factory, so that we can then move them back and forth between the 2. And all we have to do now to start sharing those is to go in here and set up a line that moves back and forth between the 2 warehouses. And this movement between the warehouses it's important to get that right. And I'm actually going to make a fundamentals video. These warehouses are so different now. This update, first of all, I love the update, and secondly, it's so different that I want to be able to show exactly how you should use these warehouses and how you should move this stuff back and forth. In fact, in watching this now, I'm not sure I did it correctly. Yeah, I didn't do a good job here. Because the danger will be, see that furniture is loading up. That's up in Moose Factory. That's awesome. It's going to take it down here to Thunder Bay. Now, if you don't have it set up correctly, it may very well in Thunder Bay pick up, guess what? Furniture and take it back to Moose Factory. Complete waste. You're just hauling stuff back and forth for no purpose. So you really want to set up the ends properly. And as I said, I'll build a video to show that. And I think I illustrated it properly earlier with that first set of warehouses, but I didn't do a good job on this one. And what we'd love to do, of course, is soon there the snow kind of let up. We want to get a large load of that lumber down to the other warehouse so that it's in the warehouse, so that while the snow's hitting Thunder Bay, it can still consume furniture. That's the point. That's the key to this whole thing with these maps that have the snow. And we're doing all of this really it's kind of something to do. It's fun to play around with, but we're really doing this to grow Moose Factory. Remember, we need one more city of 55,000. I'm just kind of thinking, man, I'd love to grow this city up here in the middle of nowhere that's way up north, gets clobbered by snow like, I don't know, several months a year, and I would love to grow it to 55,000. You can see it is growing. We're at 7 out of 8, and Moose Factory is growing nicely. In fact, it's almost there. It's growing, and it's at 53,000. And I'm still seeing that we're having trouble keeping enough cattle in there. So I'm actually, at this point, going to start running cattle from the other end, from another source that's nearby, just to speed things up. And I start to run it directly into the city. And I'm pretty sure I catch myself here and do it a different way. Maybe not. If you haven't figured it out yet, I'm actually doing this commentary after the fact. The play has been done. In fact, it's been, I don't know, probably two or 3 days ago I finished this, so I'm kind of forgotten what's going on. But I do think that I realize, wait a minute, I'm just making the same mistake from the other side now, because I'm running the stuff directly into the city. Now I'm thinking if you get double volume, that's better, but no, this is an incomplete thought. I'm just duplicating the problem on the other side, or the poor solution. The better solution, of course, is to run it into a warehouse, which I'm pretty sure I figure out eventually. And all of this could have been avoided if I had just run the original line into a warehouse right off the bat and gotten ahead of the game in terms of storing cattle in that warehouse, and then we would have never had any of these problems. That one line up there would have been plenty. It would have gotten ahead on our supply of cattle. We wouldn't be having that zero in there. We would have a nice stockpile in the warehouse. Moose Factory could draw it down through the winter months. In the summer, we could replenish, and we'd be in great shape. So, lesson learned for me, hopefully for all of us. When you're dealing with the snow, you got to have warehouses, and you got to get them stocked up. That is, if you really want your cities to consistently grow. Because see how Moose Factory was growing for a while, now it's not. The other problem, it's really hard to get, like that 80, 90, 100% demand satisfaction, because there isn't everything up there. Sugar is way far away. There's no cotton to make cloth. There's no, there's a lot of holes. We don't have all the resources up here in the far north. And here we go. Now I'm wising up and saying, geez, good grief, Attican, put your cattle in a warehouse. So now I'm going to fix that and run cattle over here into the warehouse.
Thanks to my diplomatic finesse and to my resolute acting, comprehensive access into the USA has been granted to the Grand Trunk Railway. But opening the borders does not only bring advantages. The Grand Trunk Railway might be in an excellent starting position, but nevertheless, you will finally have to face US competition. Make sure that the transport of commodities around the Great Lakes will remain under our control. What a refreshing result of the task set to you. Your determination and efficiency seems commendable to me. I could not have made a better choice for the chairmanship of the Grand Trunk Railway.
Okay, I really wanted to describe that action, but Sir Watkin had a lot of things to say. But he was very kind, so I appreciate it, Sir Watkin. But you saw how hard it was to buy a competitor. Basically, we just stopped, and when it was time to buy one, we bought one. Didn't have to open bonds. Of course, we couldn't. We got all that debt we're carrying. Just basically paid cash for Beatrix. Chose Beatrix just because, like all of us, I don't like Beatrix. she drives you crazy with those comments she makes. In fact, you've noticed probably I've turned the comments off for the characters because it just just can't listen. You can only listen to them so long, and I got a lot of hours on this game. So anyway, it was very easy to buy out Beatrix. You also notice I liquidated her. I know we've had some discussions about, oh, great, they're doing the realistic track. We can just take over their tracks, blah, blah, blah. Yuck. No. Don't want to mess with really poorly designed track. And I've said before how much I don't like inheriting created messes already. I like to make my own messes. And so we liquidated her, got some money back for that. So we were able to buy her and still have $9 million to the good. So that took care of that task. By the way, right before that, of course, we hit our 8th city. I think it was Moose Factory, but to be honest with you, I didn't check. I think Moose Factory hit 55,000, but I don't know that for a fact, to be honest with you. And I don't have a save where I can go back and look. But anyway, it be as it may, we finished off our growing cities task. We bought a competitor. We got 2 new tasks. One was buy a competitor. We did. And now we've got this task open up to have 8 express lanes. So the first thing I wanted to do here was get the possibility of getting those further south, because I do think it's hard to get express lanes up north in the snow. I suppose I expect you could, but I don't think you could keep them. And I'm not really sure. I'd have to do some testing on that. But my concept here was, why not go down where the weather's better, where we've got a chance to get these nice fast lines. So we're going to do, and this will be cool. This will show you something that goes all the way back to our Track Layout 101 videos. But what I'm trying to do here is set up a line parallel to the existing line. We already have an automatic line which is hauling freight and passengers between New York and Montreal. And so what I'm trying to do here is set up a separate line that we can set up as passenger only. And one of the problems with it is that it has difficulties because you got some bridges, you got some crossings and stuff, and you can't double up the track. So this was not an easy line to get to run straight, but there it goes. It's in good shape. I didn't mind if it had a bridge or two in it or whatever, because I wanted it as flat as possible. I want to be able to want these trains to fly through there, because we're trying to get express lanes. And for those of you not familiar with it, and I don't know the total exact rules for getting an express lane, but it's something along the lines of your trains have to kind of, set speed records. First of all, you have to have the fastest train available. There's no way you can get an express line if you're not using the fastest train available through research at that point of time in the game. Now, when you very first start, you can get an express line on whatever train you pick. I mean, even the Grasshopper in 1830 could be an express line if it's the fastest train out there. But as soon as one of your competitors gets the John Bull and they start running it, you're going to lose all your express lines. So for us, in this case, the Achilles, which is the last train you research out there on the research path now for this time period, the Achilles, which is a Canadian train, is the fastest available train. It goes 53 miles an hour. So we're going to set up a passenger line here. And back to what I was saying. So those express lines, you have to get an express rating, you have to have the fastest line, and that particular train has to make particularly fast run on that line. So that's sort of like a record for the line kind of a thing. So in other words, if you can provide service to customers where they can get to that city they're trying to go to faster than any other way available, that's when you get that express designation. So what we're doing here is setting up a parallel line that runs from Montreal to New York, and it's going to be dedicated to passengers. But look what happened. We've just set up the line, and now there's trains running on it. Now what happened? Well, they jumped. We got a jump here. I haven't had one of these in ages. But what happened was, when I set that second line, I had just run a point-to-point line prior to run that automatic, and I didn't tell them which track to use, because there was only one. Well, when we set up this new one, it's actually a slightly shorter path between the Montreal station and the New York station. So all these trains that were our automatic trains running on the other line have now jumped over to that new line, because they see it as a quicker way to get from station to station. So what I'm having to do here is go through and reset all these to go back to the track I want them to be on, the one they were originally on. And while I'm at it, I realize, well, I also need to set them for freight only, because I'm going to have another line that's running my passengers. So now we're going to have kind of a classic freight line dedicated to freight, running out of a dedicated platform from Montreal to New York. And then we're going to have a dedicated passenger mail line running from another platform, dedicated platform, on a dedicated line, so that they aren't being slowed down by the freight trains. And now we can run our passenger lines. And our passenger lines will run the Achilles, which is a fast train, and the freight line will run the Canadian, which is a powerful train which can pull the freight. And that should be really lucrative for us, both of them, because you got a beer meat thing going here with New York and Montreal. And now we'll have a strong passenger line, and we should be seeing some express designations, which gives us higher ticket prices and even more money. So here I'm paying for my laziness from long ago, when I didn't designate the track that that line was supposed to be running out of. But now I can set up a passenger and mail line that runs out of the correct track, and run the Achilles, which is the fast train, fastest one we have for this time period. And we're going to start giving it staff, because the staff help you get bonuses. You can get speed bonuses, reliability bonuses, but particularly the speed bonuses help you to get that express designation. So now we're going to set one up running back the other way, make sure we use the correct platform. As long as we set the correct platform on either end, because they're point-to-point connections, once you set one end, the other end is kind of written in stone. There's no other place it could go. So we need to make sure we designate one end. But now we're going to now we'll have a nice passenger and mail line running back and forth. We'll have a freight line running, and we should start seeing some express designations. So when you're chasing in express lines, one of the things is you want to make enough. I want enough trains on this line to make some money, and to service the passengers, but you don't want too many trains because if you get it too crowded, of course, they're going to have to go too slowly. They're going to catch each other. One breaks down, you're going to chain reaction piling up all the way back through. There's not enough time to get the one fixed and moved out of the way before the next one has to stop behind it. So you don't want too many trains. So we're just going to run, I think it's 6 we ended up running on there. It's a pretty long trip. 6 isn't a lot, and we should do just fine with 6 running on that line. And I'm really tempted at this point to fast forward a little bit because this is literally all we're doing now is chasing the express lines. But some of you don't like that. You like to see the whole thing. So I'll honor your wishes and we'll kind of slug our way through this whole thing. And there are a couple of things coming up that are probably worth commenting on. So I did right there replace all the passenger mail lines with the Achilles just to make sure that I had the fastest possible train on all my passenger lines, and also just to give them new trains so that we're much less likely to get breakdowns if we've just put out a whole new set of trains out there. And here I'm just scouting for a good place to add in a station and try to target some more possible ways. And again, I'm thinking go down south, get down here to better weather. And here we've actually, our economy's strong enough we were able to buy out Beatrix, and we've closed out that entire massive debt that we inherited at the beginning of the game. So that's pretty good. We've been able to hit all our objectives and close out that big bond, and so far we're doing all right. So we're going to put we've got Toledo here. It's pretty close to London up there, just to the north, which is one of our cities. So we're going to run a line from Toledo. Don Lorenzo's not crazy about that, but he'll have to get over it. And we're going to run a line from Toledo up here to London. And we're going to see if we can't get some express lines going here with the passenger mail line. And typically I'm not a big fan of tunnels, but you know what? That's okay. It stays relatively level. We should be able to get decent speed through there, and especially hauling passengers rather than freight. And again, this line has a very specific purpose to get us more express lines. So we're releasing these trains, so to speak, and letting them spread out so that we get a nice spread of these trains running along. The other thing I was tempted to do here was actually not put in so many signals and just have maybe a couple of, a tower in the middle and a couple of sets of signals in halfway points or quarter points, however you want to look at it, on the track, so that the trains would naturally spread. But when you do that, you also get the possibility that they kind of stop each other. So I decided to go ahead and use all the interim signals like kind of standard layout, but just make sure the trains start off spread out. And actually was tempted to say, well, I wonder what it'd take to buy out Don Lorenzo. It'd take quite a bit. And because we closed the bond and we spent all that money, and we spent all that money buying Beatrix, we could certainly buy out Don Lorenzo. That would not be a problem, but we're not going to slow ourselves down in order to do that. And here you can see our financial results. We made over $4 million profit last quarter. And it's interesting that we're making more money in a combination of passengers and mail than we are in freight, which is unusual for me. I'm a freight guy typically. I'm into city growth and freight. So you can see there also we're up to 5 out of 8 express lines right now. And none of these London to Toledo lines have kicked in yet. Now, that's the other thing. You have to be a little patient. You can see how much money they're making, great money. But you have to be a little patient with those express lines because they have to run to establish a time before they can then turn around and beat that time, right? So it takes them a while. It takes a couple of cycles before you can even start to see express. So here we're going to just give ourselves more opportunities. We're going to set up a line between, I think that was Indianapolis and Toledo up here, and get another passenger mail line going just to give us more opportunities. So again, we're kind of sticking down here to the good weather and building lines that we can set up as passenger and mail and run them into dedicated terminals or platforms, and just giving ourselves as many options or opportunities as possible so that we can get those 8 express lines. I'm trying to get any research that will help reliability or speed of the trains as well. We don't need breakdowns, and we, of course, want the power and speed of our trains to go up and up. And eventually here, I'm going to kick in and do something actually reasonably intelligent. Yeah, give me a chance, and I'll do something that's actually kind of smart. So I'm looking for another opportunity. I'm thinking, well, why not New York to Baltimore? That's opened up to us now. We can build in Baltimore. We've already got a station in New York. Why don't we run a line New York to Baltimore? But the New York to Baltimore line, as we know from other games, other scenarios we played in the scenarios, is tricky. The geography is tough. And I think it's extra tough actually on this map. It seems like it's tougher than it is on the other scenarios that you do with the East Coast map. And I actually at one point, and notice I took that big bridge. I didn't care. I wanted a kind of a flat, fast track to run on. But I actually worked on this for a while and just got fed up with it and just said, ugh, this just isn't worth the trouble. Because again, I accepted all those bridges, and now it's harder and harder and harder to get your track to line up correctly, because the bridges are hard to deal with. They're hard to get everything to. You can't snap onto the bridge. You have to snap onto the track, and when you do, it doesn't necessarily line up perfectly with your bridge. So you end up. It ends up being a difficult build, and I will reach a point here where I just start pulling out the bulldozer again. So you see there, you correct one thing and you just have another problem. So I finally said, okay, we can go somewhere else. So sorry, Baltimore, you'll have to do without Attican Enterprises services. And here's where I finally punch in and do something smart. We've got employees, a few that were unassigned, which is sad. I should have them assigned anyway. And we've got employees out there running on lines that are not likely to become express. So what I'm doing now is grabbing engineers to give you a speed bonus and grabbing stokers to give you a speed bonus, throwing a conductor on there if that works. Let's see, there's one that has the opposite effect. Wrong, okay, neutral, that's good enough. So that we can get the bonuses and get bonuses to the speed of our trains from our employees. And we've got this pool of people that are working on trains like up north where we're not likely to get a express. So let's move them down here and reassign them. And particularly if they have the speed bonus, let's move them down here where we can get some benefit out of them. I should have done this way back at the beginning. I really don't handle employees as well as I should. Another weakness, probably a laziness thing. It's probably, I'll use this as the excuse or the, really not an excuse. I don't need an excuse. It's the explanation is that I'm usually got these scenarios so well in hand that the employees would just be they're like gravy. But boy, here we go. Now we got it done, and I don't know if it's because of that employee change or just happenstance, but at least we finished. So we've successfully done the scenario. We hit all of our tasks. Our score was 18.8 out of 20, 56.5 out of what I believe to be a possible 60. So we did okay. We got a president's rating. We did all right. I'll probably take another shot at this and try to get a perfect score, of course. But just the same, I had a lot of fun doing that. I hope you had fun watching it. I hope you learned some things that will help you in your game. And I will let you know, I do plan to do a couple of more fundamentals type videos around these changes to the warehouse because it's a big deal. It's a much different animal than the warehouses we had prior to version 1.5. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it'll help you become a better player, and I hope you'll join us for our next Railway Empire video. Thank you.